Hey guys, Sean Clear with ergonomics, and today we're taking a look at the 2020 Yamaha WR250F. In 2019, the YZ250F got a whole new upgrade, a whole new chassis, new frame, new engine, and those changes were highly received by most of the media and people riding those bikes, and we really liked the way that that bike handled and the power characteristics. And then for 2020, the FX, their cross-country model, also got those changes. And then now, even though this is still a 2020 model, the WR comes out a little bit later, and it has also received an all-new chassis, all-new engine, and that is combined with the off-road specific enduro components on this bike. So looking at the 250 four-strokes in Yamaha's lineup, basically the WR is their enduro bike or their trail bike. It is a full-blown, full-size, real dirt bike, but it is tuned on the spectrum of performance to comfort. There's a few more creature comforts, a few more things to make it more pleasant for all-day riding on the trail, to hit some gnarlier terrain, not really set up for the motocross track or anything like that. So starting with the engine, for the WR, the exhaust valve timing is a little bit different, and it's supposed to move the power a little bit lower in the RPM and a more broader spread of power. Also, it has a dedicated ECU, and what makes it different than both the YZ and FX is that, one of the coolest features about those bikes is that you get the Power Tuner app, and you can adjust all the different mapping with your phone, send it to your bike, and you got a whole new mapped ECU. With the WR, it is a locked ECU, and it doesn't have that stock. But that being said, a cool thing is that you can buy a GYTR accessory ECU that you can put in this bike, and it has a map switch, and so you can basically get the power app and do exactly the same thing that you would with the YZ or the FX. It is a 6-speed wide ratio transmission. It makes it a very versatile power because of all the different gears, and the way that the bike makes the power is very linear and controllable, but it still has a quick revving character to it. It's just maybe not as gnarly punchy and like a torque feeling that the YZ has. It's a little bit tamer than that, but for off-road riding, it's really good for controllability. And while I was riding, rode a couple of the gnarlier sections a few times for video and for photo, and I noticed that riding them in first gear is super low. It is definitely a kind of a crawling gear, and I would call it more of like a bailout gear. I found it much easier to ride this bike, and it has the torque, even really, really tight, really steep stuff, to attack it in second gear and try it first in second gear and have that first gear as like a bailout gear. If you make a mistake, if you get sideways, if you stall, then you click it down into first gear and it really helps. But trying to leave it in first gear and revving it out, you just start to spin the back wheel because it's super low and you have that torque character from the engine. So I found it much more comfortable to ride it in second and third, depending on the speed of the trail, and then have first gear as a bailout. All of that makes the bike, gives you a lot of control of the bike, a lot of confidence that it's not going to fall on its face. The 250 really feels like plenty of bike for everything that we rode today. Handling wise, I would say you do feel, and I think it's also the visual while you're riding, you see the headlight, it does feel like it's a little bit harder to lift the front wheel when you're popping off of little bumps and rocks and ledges and stuff. But for me, I'm a front end steering guy. The flip side of that is that the handling is amazing. I found it extremely easy to turn. I've always liked the way the Yamahas have turned. Even with this new chassis, it turns really well for me. It's initiating the turn is so light, and it doesn't feel like there's anything resisting, any kind of centrifugal force that you're fighting against. You start to really trust that front end to stay planted, and it felt really, really amazing. So a cool thing about the WR is that it has a 2.2 gallon gas tank. So since it's under the seat, they've actually made it more gas is lower, but you get a larger gas tank, and that weight is lower in the center of the bike. It's another thing that contributes to the nimble handling feel of the bike overall. Touching on the suspension a little bit. So across the board, I think pretty much everyone really loves the KYB SSS fork and shock. There's a comfort there that is kind of a really magical balance between comfort and performance. It's something that you can really push hard and have a lot of predictability in what the bike's going to do, how it's going to handle. I feel like this WR has a really broad use. It has a really broad terrain use that you can ride it lots of different places and be happy with fast stuff, slow stuff. It's just really impressive that way. And again, the changes to the chassis and specifically the WR setup suspension, ultimate predictability on this bike. I didn't do anything today that caught me off guard. And then there's some really cool stuff that come stock for an off-road bike. I mean, it has lights, it has 18-inch rear wheel, the kickstand and the bracket holding the kickstand on was redone to make it smaller, slimmer, lighter. It has no ring chain for better durability. Overall, the changes that the YZ got really translates to the WR really well. The new chassis, new engine, and it retains a really comfortable yet performance-based suspension. And overall, we're really stoked on how this bike works. Today was a one-day test. We'd love to eventually get it to ride it some more because it's just a lot of fun to ride, and it's very versatile. So if you are on YouTube, please check out vitalmx.com for more bike tests, product tests, and stories. And if you are on vitalmx.com, go to our YouTube channel, click subscribe. Thanks for watching.